Masechet Nazir, Daf Mem Zayin, in which we complete the 6th perek and begin the 7th. Mishnah. Misha nizrak alav echad min hadamim v'nitma. Rabbi Eliezer Omer soter et hakol v'chachamim omerim yavi sha'ar korbanota v'yitar. We have a Nazir. He completed all of his days, and now he brings the first korban, and they sprinkle the blood successfully. But then he becomes tameh after he sprinkles the blood of the first korban. So there's a machloket. Rabbi Eliezer, if you remember before, Rabbi Eliezer says a person continues to be a Nazir until he completes the entire process. Only then is he permitted to start drinking wine and becoming tameh lamet. So, because Rabbi Eliezer says that, and this person only brought one sacrifice successfully, but now became tameh, and will no longer be able to offer his other sacrifices, so he negates everything. A simple reading of negates everything means he has to go all the way back to the beginning, and start all over again, because he became tameh lamet. So just like he became Tameh Lamet in the middle, he goes back to the beginning. So, well, he didn't finish. It's not over till it's totally over. Okay, but we will modify Rabbi Eliezer a little bit in the Gemara. Now, Chachamim omerim, yavi sha'ar korbanot v'yitar. Chachamim say, no, it's not a problem. Let him bring the rest of his korbanot and become tahor. What's the order of this? In the Yerushalmi, it says that he becomes tahor and then brings the other two. But it could also be the order that is expressed here, that he brings his korbanot even while tameh. He himself cannot come and bring them, but he can ask a shaliach, messenger, to bring them on his behalf, and then later on he'll become tahor. And so he can still go ahead, and he doesn't have to negate anything. The first korban that he brought was a valid korban. He was tahor, and everything was fine. And once he brings that one and brings the blood, so then that's it. He's out of the nizirut. He still has to bring his other ones, but he can bring them. And becoming tameh lamet after he brings the first one will not negate anything. He just goes ahead and does all the rest of his obligations, and he's good to go. אמרו לו, מעשה במרים התרמודית שנזרק עליה אחד מן הדמים, ובא ואמרו לה על ביתה שהייתה מסוכנת והלכה ומסעה שמתה, ואמרו חכמים תביא שאר קורבנותיה ותטהר. So the Chachamim tell Rabbi Eliezer, here's a proof for our side, because in fact there was a case of this Miriam from Talmud. Here's a picture of Talmud, Palmyra. You can go and visit. And she was a Nizirah, and she completed her days, and she brought the first korban, and the Kohanim sprinkled the blood of that first korban on the Mizbeach on her behalf. That Nizrak Aleha doesn't mean they sprinkled it on her. You don't sprinkle blood on her, but rather on the Mizbeach for her. And then before she got to finish her other two korbanot, she got a message that her daughter, sadly, was in danger of dying, and she went to visit, and sure enough, her daughter had died. And so since she is with her daughter at that point, she became tameh lamet. And the rabbi said, that's okay. It's not, it's sad for her, but in terms of nizirut, that's okay. We can go ahead, and she can bring her other korbanot and be purified. And all her days and the first korban are still perfectly valid, and she is no longer a nizirah. All right, that's the Mishnah, and the Gemara comments. Katane, Rabbi Eliezer omer soter et hakol. V'amar Rabbi Eliezer, kol achar melot shiva soter. Now, according to the Mishnah that we just read, if a Nazir gets tameh before the entire procedure is over, it negates everything. Sounds like it goes all the way back to day one. However, Rabbi Eliezer said earlier that anytime someone becomes tameh lamet after the days have been fulfilled, meaning if you become tameh midway through, then obviously everybody agrees you got to go back to the beginning. But if you counted up to the last day, and now you're on the last day, and just have to bring your korbanot, then you do not negate the days that you counted. Rather, you only have to add 7 more days. And even the 7 more days is just so that you can become tahor. It takes 7 days to be, if you're tameh met, you get sprinkled on the 3rd and the 7th, and then you're tahor. So you have to be tahor in order to bring all the rest of your korbanot. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer said there. And this would be an equivalent case if someone became tameh on their last day. Why are you saying it negates everything? Amarav my soter namid kamar Rabbi Eliezer soter korbanotav. And Rav explains, you're right. Even in this Mishnah, when it says soter et hakol, it doesn't mean hakol is not referring to all the days she counted, but rather to all of the korbanot. Even the korban that she brought already, and while she was tahor, which was valid, but now it's negated because she became tameh now and can't bring the other two, and now she's going to have to add 7 days. And when she's tahor again, then she's going to have to bring all of her korbanot. That's what soter et hakol means. But you're right, indeed. She does not have to recount. And actually, this interpretation of Rav, we're not just backing into it because we had a contradiction, but also it makes sense from the context, because when we look at Chachamim and what they disagree about, right? The Chachamim say, "Oh, let her bring the other korbanot, and then she'll be fine." So from the fact that they say that, and the Chachamim don't say, no, she doesn't have to count, she can keep going or anything like that. It sounds like the point of disagreement is only regarding the first korban, right? Of course, she's going to have to bring the next korbanot. She didn't bring them yet. The question is about the first korban. Chamim say, no, the first korban she did was valid, and now she just has to bring the rest of them. So that means, according to the Rabbi Eliezer, she has to go back and do all 3 korbanot. So from the context of the contrast with Chachamim, since they only are talking about the korbanot, it sounds like Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim are only disagreeing about the korbanot, but they all agree that the days that she counted are valid. And now we're just going to cite the rest of the Mishnah as relevant to what Rabbanan's opinion. And here in the context of the story, the rabbi said the same thing. Let her just bring the rest of the korbanot, and that will be fine. It is interesting that the phrase that the Chachamim say here in the apodictic part of the Mishnah, meaning where they just give the Pesach Halacha, Yavi shar korbanotov veyitar, is the same as what they say in the story. Tavi shar korbanotah vetitar. What's this korbanotov in male? This is in female because it was talking about Miriam, so it's in female here. It's just giving a Pesach Halacha, so it gives it in a more general way in male gender. But otherwise, we could probably assume that this story is in fact the origin of the law, right? The story came first, and then at some point, during codification, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, whoever first put together this oral tradition, removed the story part and just kept the base halacha l'maaseh, because what does it matter what her name was and where she's from, and so this so you have the story first, then you have the Pesach halacha. Pesach halacha is remembered separately, and then in order to bolster it, I'll tell you actually the whole story, because this is not just a theoretical that that the rabbis thought about and decided, but rather it was an actual case, and so that makes it stronger. Hadran dalach shelosha minin chazakim uberuchim. Completing the 6th perek. And now the 7th perek. Kohen gadol v'nazir en mitamein likro behen, ava mitamein lemet misvah. Okay, so now a nazir is similar to a Kohen gadol in that neither of them can become tameh, not even for their closest relatives, as we saw above. However, both of them are permitted to become tameh for met mitzvah if they're walking on the road. So if either of them separately are walking on the road and they see a body and no one is around to bury them, both a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir are permitted to become Tameh Lamet to bury them. But now the question is, what if there's a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir that together walk into a bar? No, they're walking in the desert. They're walking on the road, and they see a Met Mitzvah. So only one of them needs to become Tameh Lamet. There's no point in both of them becoming Tameh Lamet. Which one takes precedence? That's the question. Rabbi Eliezer Omeri Tamai Kohen Gadol V'ali Tameh Nazir. Hachamim Omri Mi Tameh Nazir V'ali Tameh tameh Kohen Gadol. So Rabbi Eliezer says, let the Kohen Gadol become tameh and leave the Nazir alone. Chachamim say the opposite. The Nazir should become tameh and let the Kohen, let the value tameh Kohen Ejot, and let not even a common priest should not become tameh, all the more so a Kohen Gadol. Okay, let's see their reasoning. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Tameh Kohen, she'eno mebi korban al tumato, v'al yitameh Nazir shu mebi korban al tumato. Rabbi Eliezer says, let the Kohen or Kohen Gadol become Tameh, because a Kohen, not even the Kohen Gadol, they don't bring a korban if they become Tameh. There's a prohibition. A Kohen cannot become Tameh. If they do, so they violate the prohibition, but they don't have to bring korban, whereas a Nazir is much stricter. A Nazir has to bring 3 korbanot on becoming Tameh Lamet and go all the way back to the beginning. So we see that the law is much more stringent for a Nazir, and therefore it must be worse for a Nazir to become Tameh. Therefore, let the Kohen Gadol go and bury the guy. Amru lo yitameh Nazir she'en kedushato kedushat olam, v'al yitameh Kohen she'kedushato kedushat olam. However, the Chamim said back to him, no, we think the opposite, that the Nazir should become Tameh because his sanctity is not permanent. A Nazir, he wasn't born a Nazir, and so at some point he said, I'm going to be a Nazir for 30 days, a year, 10 years, doesn't matter. Even if he becomes Nazir for a lifetime, still he wasn't born that way. And so the holiness of a Nazir is lower than a Kohen, even a regular Kohen, not only Kohen Gadol, because a Kohen is born that way and never stops being a Kohen and cannot become Tameh Lamet for his entire life. And therefore, the Kedusha of a Kohen is higher than that of a Nazir. Okay, very interesting to compare these two and see, each one has a stringency and that the other doesn't have. All right, now the Gemara is going to bring up a bunch of other cases where you have two people, and we have to decide who should become Tameh Lamet if it's relevant, like if they see a met mitzvah. Pishlama Kohen Gadol v'Nazir, Hai Sabar Kohen Gadol Adif, Hai Sabar Nazir Adif. Okay, Mishnah gave us this case of a Kohen Gadol Nazir, and we had one opinion said Kohen Gadol is better, meaning should remain tahor. And the other said Nazir is better and he should remain tahor. Okay, we understand their logic, but now we want to ask some other cases. Mashuach b'shemen hamishcha or merubeh begadim. Within Kohen Gadol, there are different types of Kohen Gadol. During the time of the first Bet HaMikdash, when they had special oil by which they used to anoint a Kohen Gadol, oil that was prepared by Moshe Rabbeinu, so that was a higher level of being Kohen Gadol. During the second Bet HaMikdash, they no longer had that. It was put away, never to be found again. And so in the second Bet HaMikdash, what distinguishes the Kohen Gadol is that he has many garments. A regular Kohen has 4 garments. Kohen Gadol has 8 garments. And so when someone is inaugurated, they don't get oil on their head, but they get to wear the extra 8 garments, including the seats, very special garments that only the Kohen Gadol wears. So they're both Kohanim Gedolim. And so if you have a Kohen from the first Bet HaMikdash and a Kohen from the second Bet HaMikdash, well, they couldn't be walking together. But let's say, theoretically, if there was, during the first Bet HaMikdash, sometime a person that didn't get anointed, and they come upon a Met Mitzvah, who should take care of it? Mashur b'shem hamishcha adif, mashur b'shem hamishcha mebi para ba'al kol mitzvot, v'lo merubeh begadim and mevi. The Kohen Gadol that was anointed with oil takes precedence and he remains tahor. When we know that there is a significant halachic difference, it's not just about what inauguration ceremony they have. There actually is a halachic difference between the status of these two Kohanim. The one that was anointed with oil, if that Kohen Gadol should sin and violate a sin, that a normal person would have to bring a korban chatat. For a regular person, anyone who has to bring korban chatat brings a small animal, like a goat. However, a Kohen Gadol who was anointed with oil for violating the same sin by mistake, who has to bring korban chatat, actually brings a par, has to bring a bull instead. He's Kohen Gadol. He's everybody's looking up to him, and so his sin is more impactful. and therefore has to bring a pot. Whereas when there's no more of the oil and someone, Kohen Gadol, only has the eight garments to inaugurate him, that Kohen Gadol does not bring the pot, but just brings a regular animal like anybody else. So we see that even in their halachic status regarding korbanot, there is a significant difference between the two, and therefore it makes sense also for becoming tameh lamet, better for the Kohen Gadol merubeh begadim to become tameh than for the one that is mashuach b'shemen hamishcha. Next case, mashuach she'avad merubeh begadim. Merubeh begadim adif, the merubeh begadim aved avodah, vil mashuach she'avad lavar avodah hu. If we have a Kohen Gadol who was retired, he was Kohen Gadol and that's it, he stopped. For example, if the Kohen Gadol became tameh or was sick and couldn't serve, and so you have someone else come and serve in his place, and then he gets better. So the one that served in his place, the substitute, he was Kohen Gadol. You never go back to becoming just a regular Kohen. So that's an example of a retired Kohen Gadol. And another one who is the active regular Kohen Gadol. So better the one that's the active Kohen Gadol takes precedence and remains tahor, because the one who is merubeh berubim, who is currently active, he's doing the avodah. If he has to take care of this dead body, then he's going to be tameh for a few days and won't be able to serve in the Bet HaMikdash. Whereas the one who is retired, he's not serving anyway. So better for him to become tameh. And then he'll become tahor, and it won't disrupt the Bet HaMikdash service. Next case, avad mechamat keruyo ve'avad mechamat mumo. If you have one Kohen Gadol who cannot serve temporarily because he is tameh tumat keri. Let's say he was with his wife the night before, and so he has to go to the mikveh, and so he cannot serve that day. Whereas someone else has a blemish, right? They have some kind of physical blemish on their body, and because of that, they cannot serve in the Bet HaMikdash. So neither of these people are serving on that day. And they're walking along the way, and they come upon a dead body, met misvah. Aval mechamat keduyo adif ilu hai chazeh la'avodah lemachar, v'ilu aval mechamat mumo la'chazeh la'avodah. So the one who is only tameh because of keri takes precedence and remains tahor, because he can go and do avodah tomorrow. He'll go to the mikveh and he'll be okay tomorrow. Whereas the one who has a mum cannot serve ever, right? If he's missing a limb or something, so he's not going to be serving today and not tomorrow, and anyway, so he may as well go ahead and take care of the mitzvah. All right, good. Next case, what if you have these are both not Kohanim Gedolim, but they are a high status of a Kohen. One is Mashuach Milchama. When the people of Bnei Israel will go out to war, there will be one of the Kohanim whose job was to go out to war with them, and he would give them a pep talk and encouragement, and he was anointed with oil. So he has a high status. Mashuach Milchama also has some laws in common with the Kohen Gadol. For example, he cannot marry an almanah. So if you have a Mashuach Milchama and a Sagan, that's a vice Kohen Gadol, he's ready and waiting just in case the Kohen Gadol becomes incapacitated. Then the Sagan will come in and take over. For example, on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol has to be doing the service, so you need to have someone prepared. So he's also on a higher level than regular Kohanim, but not as high as a Kohen Gadol. So which of them? Heminayu adif. Here's the two sides of it. On the one hand, maybe you'll say the one anointed for war takes precedence and remains tahor because he has to be ready for war. Who knows, right? He might have to come and serve in that capacity. Or maybe the vice Kohen Gadol is better because he has to be fit for service. Who knows when the Kohen Gadol will be incapacitated and he'll have to go in, and so he should not become tameh. So which one is it? Well, here's an answer. Tashema detanya. And ben mashuach milchama lesegan, ela shim hayu melchim beder masum met misvah yitameh mashuach milchama v'al yitameh segan. Oh, we're lucky to have a braita that answers this directly. there is no difference between Mashur Milchama and the Segan, except that if they're walking on the way and they confront a Met Mitzvah, so we tell the one anointed for war to become Tameh and not the Segan. The Segan is going to have to actually be serving in the Bet HaMikdash, potentially, and so therefore it's better for him to remain Tahor. Hold on, we have another contradictory baraita that says that the one that's anointed for war takes precedence. So it sounds like the Segan should go and take care of the Met Mitzvah. So no, that is talking about a different issue. If you can only save one of them, two of them are drowning, and you can only save one, or two of them were captured, and you can only rescue one of them, then you have to rescue the Mashuach Milchama, because the public depends on him. If there's a time of war, then he's necessary to go and take care of and help out in the war. So that is more important in terms of his life. But in terms of becoming Tameh, Ulyan Tumah, Segan Adif. That's what the first Baraita was talking about. If it's just about being Tameh, and there'll just be a few days, so then we'd rather have the Segan remain Tahor, so he can step in if necessary, and let the Mashuach Milchama take care of the Met Mitzvah. Tetanya Rabbi Chanina ben Antignos Omer, Lama tikenu Segan Kohen Gadol shemerabo pesul hare nichnas meshamesh tachtav. And so we have a braita that supports why a Segan has that importance, that you save his life. That he remains tahor. Because we see what's the purpose of Segan. Why do we have a vice Kohen Gadol? So that if the Kohen Gadol should have something that disqualifies him, then the Segan can go and take over for him. And therefore, that might happen at any time. We need the Segan to remain pure. But if it's about saving a life, ultimately the Mashuach Milchama is more important for public safety. עד כאן לה פליגי אלא בכהן גדול ונזיר כי כזלה בהדה הדדה אבל חד לחודה ברי תמויה אינון מנם הנמילה. Because now we're going to take a step back and recognize that we jumped right into a complicated problem of when we have two people and we don't know what to do. So this machloket in the Mishnah is when there's a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir and they're working together. But let's go back, take a step back and talk about a regular case. Just one person walking alone, and we're assuming already that they can become Tameh. A Kohen Gadol or a Nazir walking alone, since a Met Mitzvah can become Tameh. What is the source for that law? Okay, here it is. Tanur Banan. Al kol nafshot met lo yavo. B'meh katuv medaber I barchokim kal v'chomer hu. Uma kohen gadol shu mittameh lakerubim eno mittameh larchokim. Kohen gadol she'eno mittameh lakerubim eno din she'eno mittameh larchokim ela b'kerubim hakatuv medaber. Let's look at the Pisukim in context first. We're talking about here a Kohen Gadol that gets the oil on his head and also wears the special clothing. It says, V'an kol nafshot met lo yavo, la'aviv limo lo yitama. He cannot become close to a dead body, and to his father and mother, he cannot become tameh. So this is a bit redundant, because if he can't become tameh to anyone, does that include a father and mother? All right, well, you might think it's maybe father and mother might be an exception, so it has to add them also. But the Gemara is going to add a Kal V'chomer argument here, because a few Pisukim above I've talked about a regular Kohen, and regarding a regular Kohen, it already said, L'nefesh lo yitama be'amav, he cannot become tameh to a regular person, except if it's a relative. So, coming back to the Kal V'chomer here, here's what we say. When regarding the Kohen Gadol that says, Al kol nafshot met lo yavo, who is that referring to? Is it talking about rechokim, meaning non-relatives? I don't need you to tell me about it that the Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh lamet for non-relatives, because I can learn that from a Kal V'chomer. If a regular Kohen who can become tameh for close relatives cannot become tameh for non-relatives, Kohen Gadol who cannot become tameh for relatives, all the more so cannot become tameh for non-relatives. It's a long way of saying that a Kohen Gadol first is a regular Kohen, right? And so he has the basic requirements of all Kohanim that cannot become tameh for non-relatives. Therefore, this pasuk cannot be talking about non-relatives. Rather, this pasuk by Kohen Gadol is already telling us that the Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh, not even for his closest relatives. Therefore, the words le'aviv ulimo are extraneous, and so they're available to learn something else. Le'aviv hu de'eno mittameh, ha mittameh hu lemet misvah. It's only for his father that he cannot become tameh, right? It's important that there's a yud here, right? Without the yud, it would be mitameh, which means he makes something else tameh. But mitameh, with a dagesh on the tet, means he does not become impure. But he can't. That means it's actually limiting, and is being more permissive. Only for his father, a Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh, but that comes to exclude someone else. And who is that? That's a met mitzvah, and this is the source that a Kohen Gadol can become tameh for a met mitzvah. All right, while we're in the middle of this derasha, let's just complete it and read a couple more lines. Ul imma, what does the word his mother come to include? Because that also is not necessary from the first phrase that he cannot become tameh to anyone. We know the Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh to his mother. So what is this coming to add? It's actually a ligzera shava. Lich de Rabbi, the Tanya Rabbi Omer. Gaben Nazir b'motam eno mitameh ava mitameh hu l'ngaim v'lezibatam. V'en ele ben Nazir b'Kohen Gadol minayin. Okay, this word le'imma is going to teach us that a Nazir, a Kohen Gadol, cannot become Tameh Lamet, but is permitted to become Tameh in other ways. Now, we already know this is true regarding a Nazir, because for a Nazir, it says he cannot become Tameh B'motam, right, when someone dies. So that means only for Tumah Lamet, he cannot become Tameh, but he can become Tameh Lamet for other reasons, for nega sarat or for zava. Meaning if a Nazir has a friend or relative who became a zav, or became a mesorah and needs some help, and so the Nazir wants to help them out and touch them, go and and help them out, and so then by doing that they'll become tameh. That's okay. A Nazir is permitted to become tameh sarat or tameh from a zav. And the only problem is Tameh Lamet. So we know that for Nazir. Now, I only know that for Nazir. What about Kohen Gadol? Is it the same true? Kohen Gadol, does he have to keep away from all Tumah or only Tumat Met? אמרת לא יאמר אמו בכהן גדול שאין תמוד לומר שרק וחומר הוא מה אם במקום שכהן גדול שכהן נג'ות מטמא לאחיו מאביו אין כהן גדול מטמא לאביו מקום שאין כהן הג'ות מטמא לאחיו מאמו אין עוד דין שאין שכהן גדול מטמא לאמו. Okay, so we're going to learn from a kavachomer that the word mother is not necessary. You could tell this already because since the first phrase said Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh to anyone, and that included relatives. So I already know all close relatives, so really the mother is extraneous. Okay, but we're going to add here a kavachomer to prove the point further. That the Kohen Gadol, why do in the word imo and Talmud Omar, it teaches me nothing new. After all, I have a kal vachomer. If regarding a regular Kohen, he can become tameh for his brother, but only for his paternal brother, assuming a full brother is both. But let's say it's a half brother. If it's a paternal half brother, yes, a regular Kohen can become tameh for if his paternal half brother dies. And yet, a Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh for his father. Then, in a place where a Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh for his maternal half-brother, all the more so a Kohen Gadol should will not be able to become tameh for his mother. Point being that a relationship from the father is stronger than a relationship from the mother regarding kehuna, which makes sense because you become Kohen through the father, not through the mother. And so a regular Kohen is more likely to become tameh, is more permitted to become tameh on his father's side, because it's his paternal brother, he can become tameh. And yet, even though that's a stronger relationship, nevertheless, Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh for his father. So all the more so when the Kohen relationship is weaker, which is on his mother's side, and we see it's weaker because a regular Kohen cannot become tameh for his maternal half-brother. So all the more so, Kohen Gadol, if he can't become tameh for his father, he certainly cannot become tameh for his mother. Okay, therefore, im zachita mehadin matamud omar immo. So since we merit to, or zachita, we are successful in learning this law from a kal vachomer. So what do I need the word immo regarding Kohen Gadol? Kohen Gadol mufne lakish v'ladun emenu gezerah shava. Nemar immo ben Nazir v'nemar immo beKohen Gadol. Oh, so now it's extra this word to make a kal vachomer. Okay, so we have to go through this whole kal vachomer thing, because we have to prove that it's extra. You can only make a gezerah shava if the word is not necessary for its own context. So it says the word imo also regarding a Nazir. He also cannot become tameh for his mother. And Kohen Gadol also says that. So, ma imo hamor ben Nazir b'mo tameh no mit tameh ava mit tamehu nig'am v'luzivatam. Af imo hamor b'Kohen Gadol mo tameh no mit tameh ava mit tameh nig'am ulzivatam. So here's what we learn. Just like regarding the word mother that's said regarding a Nazir, we learned over there that yes, a Nazir cannot become tameh lamet on behalf of his mother, but he can become tameh if his mother or anyone else should become a mesora or a zava, and he needs to help them out and give them food, and that would require being close to them and touching them and becoming tameh. So, and that's permitted. So, to the word imo regarding a Kohen Gadol also teaches that it's only if the mother would die, then the Kohen Gadol cannot become tameh lamet, but he is permitted to become tameh as nega sarat or for a zava if he needed to or if he wanted to. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen.